Drop that super thanks and let's hit the gong. Welcome to Strangeville, gang. Welcome to the channel. My name is K to the S-T-R-A-N-G-E. Can't even get it out today. I'm so excited to take a look at a weird book. My Friend Dahmer by Derf, Backderf, made into a film recently, a Netflix adaptation. The Netflix show goes way beyond what the graphic novel does, and I think I haven't seen the My Friend Dahmer movie. I just know it's based on this graphic novel by this fella Derf, Backderf, who went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, believe it or not. Derf, Backderf is also one of the most clinically, he's suffering. He's one of the worst sufferers of the Trump derangement syndrome on the internet. Oh, here we go. Kevin Strange gonna talk about politics instead of the fucking book sitting in front of him once again. Listen, gang. They talk about the politics. I talk about them talking about the politics. If you don't want to hear me reference Derf Backderf going on psychotic rants about Donald Trump, tell him not to talk about Donald Trump. This isn't a one-way fucking street where these comic book artists like him and Eric Larson and Mark Waid and all these people suffering from Trump derangement syndrome get to wail about politics all day long, and then on the other side, I'm not allowed to criticize them for it. I want them to shut the fuck up about politics. Believe me. The only reason we're talking about that instead of this is because Derf Backderf talks about that instead of this. This show that I've created, the entire point of it, if you haven't noticed by now, is to try to drag comic books back to some semblance of normalcy, some type of culture that focuses on making great books, the meritocracy of the art form, celebrating the best of the best instead of the most the best of the best instead of the oppressed, right? And step one is to get these grown men to stop bellyaching about the stuff they watch on the TV news every night. I mean, Christ. It's a bad. What I was going to say is it's a bad week for Derf Backderf because Donald Trump was just reelected the 47th president of the United States, and these people are losing their minds because when a party wins as big as the Republican Party did this past week, that's a time for reflection, a self-reflection. What did we do wrong from the side that lost? They got their dick pushed in the dirt, right? But these leftoid weirdos like Derf Backderf, I'm not. We're talking about the guy that went to high school, Jeffrey Dahmer. Don't worry, we're getting into it. We're gonna get deep into this. But he doesn't spend his time talking about his books. He spends his time talking about Donald Trump. So give me a few minutes to, criticize and critique that, because, the larger point of the channel here is to get these people to calm down, start talking about comics again. But they don't. There is no self-reflection. He's a great. I mean, I love the art. This book is gorgeous. But they don't self-reflect. They don't realize maybe the large majority of the American audience doesn't care about our leftoid oppression Olympics. They don't care that we shove gay, black, female everything into our stories. This, of course, was written before Trump derangement syndrome, so every character in this book is white because he went to I think it's Wisconsin. Of course, an all-white school in Wisconsin, so it's reflected as such. Look how cool this art style is. I think it's described as like somewhere in here. There's the description is that it's morbidly rubbery or something like that, like this, like unsettlingly weird. And I agree, and I think it's perfect to tell the morbid story of Jeffrey Dahmer's early years. So, in essence, all these guys that went to high school, Jeffrey Dahmer said, "Man, that dude is gonna definitely grow up to be a serial killer," and then he did grow up to be a serial killer. And Derf Backderf ended up becoming a graphic novelist, a cartoonist, comic book artist, and so he made this rad book comic all about his experiences with Dahmer before he. So this all leads up to the if you've watched the Netflix show or the movie, or if you haven't, this leads up all the way through high school till he ended up while his parents split up at some point while he was in high school, and his dad would leave him for months at a time to go be with his new girlfriend or wife or whatever, I guess girlfriend. And so Dahmer would have the house completely to himself, completely isolated. And at a certain point, he ends up picking up a hitchhiker and killing him. And that's the first, that was his first kill that got him started down his murderous killing spree. And so this book kind of leads you up right up to that point. So this is all the weird shit that people experienced with Dahmer before he started murdering people. And he's like killing animals and like keeping their corpses and like dissecting animals, which is what eventually turned into him dissecting people and cutting up bodies and cooking them, becoming a cannibal and all that. There's this jogger he fantasizes about. Yeah. Bad week for Derf Backderf though, and you would think I keep going back to this. I'm trying to get through this thought. You would think that this would be a moment. This current time would be a moment for self-reflection from the left and say maybe we should calm down on the DEI bullshit. The American public doesn't want that. Maybe they could go. They should start heading back toward this kind of stuff where they're telling their own experience, like the most talented artists and writers start going back to telling their personal stories again instead of trying to shove these crazy weird DEI stories into everything. Like, well, I can't write a story about a straight white man. I have to write stories about gay, black, trans people. For no other purpose. There's no demand for that. That's a tiny niche community of weirdos. And yet it has to be shoved into the mainstream as though it's some normal thing. It's as though around every corner. I guess if you're like 20 and you're in government school, maybe there's 14 trans people in your graduating class of 100. But that's not real. That's fake. They are doing that because it's trendy. Once you get out in the real world, the ratio of like normal people to weirdos is much, much smaller. Hollywood would want you to believe otherwise, that every other person is gay and women run everything, but that's just not. As this election just showed, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. And the consequences of ignoring reality is another 4 years of Trump with one of the biggest mandates we've ever seen as far as taking the presidency, the House, the Senate. It's going to be a tough 4 years for Backderf here and his friends. And if they know what's good for them, they'll shut up and make cool comics. They won't, but, they should. Boy, there's a bunch of different ways to go with this. And, let's just pick one. So first of all, My Friend Dahmer by Backderf is not the most famous Jeffrey Dahmer book out there. This is the other Jeffrey Dahmer book, right? The Big Book of Dahmer, the infamous Dahmer books from the comic books from the 1990s. Those belong to Boneyard Press and Hart Fisher, friend of the channel Hart Fisher. And if you want to read the original Dahmer books, go to AmericanHorrors.net and you can help support the release, the crowdfunded release of the Big Book of Dahmer, the collection of all those original controversial 90s Dahmer comics that got Hart drug onto those daytime talk shows and had him face off with the families of the victims and all that. This ain't that. This is the NPR nerd version of of the Dahmer stuff, and it's good too. I mean, it's got its own, obviously this style is unique and fucked up, and it's fun, and this dude's a good he's a real good writer. We'll just dig into a couple things, and then there's and I just want to talk about, I don't know what I want to talk about, gang. I don't know if I want to talk about anything else. Maybe this will be a short episode. It was 1975, my sophomore year at Revere High School. My friends and I, a small group of band nerds and advanced placement brains, became fascinated by this strange guy who threw fake epileptic fits and mimicked the slurred speech and spastic tics of someone with cerebral palsy. And then there's our boy, Jeffrey Dahmer. Mike, Kent, Neil, Backderf. So, Neil, what's the deal with this Dahmer dude? Is he insane? Oh, completely, Kent. He lives near me, but I didn't really know him until we took tennis lessons together last summer. Isn't he totally hilarious? Yeah, but this act of his mom has this freaky interior decorator who talks weird. Wanna buy some dwapes, man? Oh. Looking back on it now, knowing what we know, it seems incomprehensible that Dahmer could get away with such bizarre behavior. But it's not as if he was the only freak at school. Oh, yeah? I hate you! Yeah! Let go! Dahmer's normal compared to that maniac Lloyd Fig. Indeed. So it's just it's this is an interesting like the idea of a serial killer's like formative years being so well documented because he was in a public high school with someone who would go on to be a writer and artist. I think this is unique. Most maybe no other serial killer has as much documentation on his early life, because Dahmer would go on to disappear into Chicago and sort of become this recluse that no one, he became a stranger. He became a thief in the night, so to speak. But at this point, he was there. He was around everyone, and people just watched this development occur. They literally watched a murderer's personality develop in real time. And then one of the people who experienced it went on to become a writer and an illustrator, and that's unique. This is as much as I complain about these guys and the way they interact with the public on social media, they got where they got for a reason, and then they screwed it all up by being idiots on the internet. But boy, before the internet, we would get gems like this book. I feel sorry for I feel bad for the people who grow up today to become artists and writers because they're so steeped in DEI. I've been reading I've been reading these Scott Pilgrim books, and this just you're not these can't be made today the way they were made in the 90s. There's too much pressure on young artists and writers to go the DEI route, the oppression route, the victimhood route, and that lens leads to nowhere. No one wants that, and there's no demand from the public for that type of storytelling. And I hope that somehow, I don't have faith that these next, because we already lived through 4 years of Trump, and all the left did was double and triple and quadruple down and make DEI even worse, and make this stuff even cringier. But some part of me still hopes, still has optimism that we have entered a new golden age of culture that will annihilate and send DEI to the phantom zone, and people will be able to talk about, artists and writers will be able to, and filmmakers and musicians will be able to tell their own personal experiences again, and not worry about whether 1.2% of the population is properly overrepresented by 500% in their storytelling. But that's yet to be seen. Trump hasn't even been sworn in yet. Our interest in Dahmer may sound mean-spirited, but it really wasn't. We weren't putting him down. After all, we weren't a whole lot higher up the social ladder. He genuinely amused us, that's all. It seemed his transformation from shy geek to spaz freak happened overnight. It probably didn't. I simply hadn't noticed Dahmer before. He wasn't on my radar screen. Hello, Mr. Backderf! He was now. I was 15, and like most 15-year-olds, the hormones had kicked in big time. I thought about girls from dawn till dusk. Man, I'd be thinking about that thick booty too, Mr. Backderf. Your average horny teenage boy bumbling to the brim with sexual frustration. Well, I'm 44 years old, and I'm still bubbling to the brim with sexual frustration. So it ain't gonna get any better, Mr. Backderf. Dahmer's sexuality emerged at this time too. Being gay was a painful realization for any teenager back then, even more so for a kid from a very proper small town. It was a sexual awakening full of doubt and denial and shame. But for Dahmer, it was far, far worse. This dude's a good writer, He's he has this great, unique illustration style. Look at these fucking faces that he constructs. It's just, it's like a clay figure built with pen and ink. Reminiscent in a way, I think, of Richard Corbin's style, where and Backderf might also, because Richard Corbin would often construct faces out of clay and then light them so that he could use them as reference and get realistic lighting and everything off of them. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Backderf did something similar in the construction of his anatomy and his faces. Even the proportions of his limbs and everything are just a little bit weird, a little bit off. Kids today might say that this was if an AI trained on the wrong anatomy, that it would end up with a style like this. That's what the kids today would say. He kept his homosexuality hidden from everyone. That was the norm. Many of our classmates were gay, and not a single one of them came out in school. I don't think many is appropriate. I think Backderf is just a leftist weirdo that wants people to believe that every third person in the room is gay. And every third person in the room today under 25 says they're gay. They just, I think they're incels and femcels, virgins that have never had sex and just say, I'm gay because that translates in Zoomer speak to I'm a good person. I talked about that during the, if you go back and watch, if you want to hear the long version of that rant, that's in the my Brian Lee O'Malley Lost at Sea video I did from last week. You can go check that out if you're interested in a larger deep dive on my analysis of modern homosexuality. But Dahmer had another secret, a terrible secret. In Dahmer's fantasies, his lovers were dead. Dead men. Corpses. What spawned this perverse sexual hunger? What deep fetid part of his psyche gurgled up this miscreant desire so powerfully voracious it immediately devoured him whole? Dahmer himself was at a loss to explain its origins. I don't know where it came from, Jeff said years later. I'll probably never know. Oh, but I never dreamed it would become a reality. Sigh. But at school, Jeff for the first time had friends. Okay, he was more mascot than pal. He was, after all, a pretty strange kid, but he'd always been a non-entity. Now he was the center of attention. Today's meeting of the Dahmer fan club is hereby called to order. This was our sophomore year. Was, sad to say, very likely the happiest period of Dahmer's life. I don't know, I would say probably having sex with black men and then dismembering their corpses and eating their bodies was probably quite a thrilling time of his life there, Backderf, but that's editorial notes. Let's keep reading. Check it out. Dahmer as a bag of groceries. Dahmer as a telephone pole. I think I captured the subject well, don't you agree? Oh, brilliant. Note, these are actual drawings from my high school sketchbook. So these are the... he just lifted those right from the sketchbook and plopped them into the book here. Dahmer himself recalled these days fondly. With my friends at school, we had a good time, a good social life. Anyone want fries with that? The good times didn't last long, however. Dahmer was obsessed with the jogger who ran past his house every day. For months, Dahmer watched from the woods, from the house as the jogger ran past. Dahmer fantasized about lying down next to his unconscious body, about fondling and having total control over him. This fantasy consumed Dahmer. He thought of little else. Finally, he decided to act, to make this bizarre desire a reality. It was his first step on the road to hell. This is Dahmer hiding behind the bushes with a baseball bat. He's going to take out the jogger. But the jogger didn't run past that day. Got tied up at work, not feeling well. Who knows? Maybe just a whim, one that may have saved his life. Curiously, Dahmer didn't make another attempt. It was as if with this failure, he'd wrested back control from the dark urges that churned in his head, at least for a while. Sophomore year ground on. At 16, I now had wheels, and my friends and I spent endless hours cruising around town. Dahmer was never asked to join us, even though I drove right past his house on the way to pick up some of the other guys. We eating at Rizzy's or Skyway? Some instinct warned me off. I was always wary of Dahmer. I was willing to hang out with him at school, but there was no way I was going to forge a closer friendship. Even here, early in his descent, I recognized there was something about Dahmer, something creepy. On the surface, Dahmer's life and my life were very similar. Our dads were both chemists. We both had one sibling, a younger brother. Even the houses we grew up in, 50s mod ranches perched on wooden hillsides, were the same. Anyway, this is a great book. It just goes on and on like that. A few hundred pages, maybe 300 pages. It's 100, no, about 200. About 200 pages of the, the story of Dahmer there. I like it a lot. I think it's, it gets a high rating from me, both art and story wise. If you've seen the My Friend Dahmer movie, you already know this story. This is what it was based on. I think even the Netflix adaptation took a lot from this. There's a lot of his early years, his high school stuff, the jogger and all that is in the Netflix series as well. So the Netflix is like a hybrid of this book, and then it goes on, of course, to the heinous killings. Before we get out of here, I got to give a shout out, right, to my patrons. You can become a patron and read my weird comics for just $3 a month. And shout outs to Savage Splendor, Dark Lord Carrion, 666 Yoshi, Alien on LSD, Joseph Stark, Loudpack Productions, Dave Baxter, Jason German, Mutant Minds, Joshua Wise, Jeremy Maddox, Nirvana, Andrew Varble, and our newest patron, Darren Oni. Thank you guys so much for your support. And of course, with your support, you get the shouts in the videos. Plus, you get access to all of my weird comics that people would probably say make me seem like I'm a future serial killer. You gain access to over 20 years of comics, novels, and feature films like Kevin Strange's Space Worms, Count Kefula, Death to Strangeville, Wizard of Ganj, Too Many Dabs, and many other comic books there. But speaking of Space Worms, we are almost at that 1,000 subscriber mark, gang. Please like and subscribe this video. If you're not already subscribed, please do so now. Usually 40-50% of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed because the way the YouTube algorithm works now is it just dumps videos to your home screen that you're not even subscribed to. Just some, whatever. I don't know why subscribers are even a big deal to YouTube now, but in order for me to get the channel fully monetized and start making money off my Backderf videos, I have to have 1,000 subscribers. We are almost there. We are just over 50 subscribers away from that coveted 1,000 subscriber mark. Please subscribe today and get us over that line. I think we'll be over that line before Christmas. And as an early Christmas present to you, gang, when we hit that 1,000 subscribers, I'm releasing Kevin Strange's Space Worms, my 164-page graphic novel that probably makes me look like a serial killer, for free digital download on the Patreon. The link to the Patreon is the link is in the description. So be sure you do all that, gang. And if you are a serial killer and you like to draw comic books, you can send me your comic books to be highlighted and featured here on the channel, like Ron Thuen did. In fact, here's another serial killer. This is Charlie Brown as Charles Manson, Helter Skelter with the swastika and everything. You can send your comics to be highlighted here on the channel to P.O. Box number 5, Cottage Hills, Illinois, 62018. Kevin Strange, P.O. Box number 5, Cottage Hills, Illinois, 62018. Like Ron Thuen did with his Dilligaff books, which he's informed me now that that this stands for Do I Look Like I Give a Fuck? Like, I guess I should be smart enough to figure that out. I did not figure that out myself. Look how awesome Ron's art is, and he does these Do I Look Like I Give a Fuck little zine books contain two short stories in each one of them, and he sent me 3 of them, and they all have these amazing artwork. I mean, I think Ron blows Backderf out the water. What do you think, gang? I think Ron Thuen should make his own. Well, he does make his own serial killer comics here. Now we're three homages deep. This is The Shining. This is Charlie Brown as Charles Manson as Jack. What is his name in I don't remember what Jack's last name is in The Shining. He's got a killer style. He's reading a copy of Does It Look Like I Give a Fuck? Great stuff here, gang. I'm going to get out of here. Go check out Backderf's social media if you think I'm exaggerating about how bad he suffers from Trump derangement syndrome. And our goal here is not to, it's not to censor people. It's not to tell people what they can think and feel. It's to just try to calm these people down. What we need is a return of masculine leadership to the comic book community, to the comic book culture, and to these comic book companies that publish this stuff. All it would take, these leftoids are so cowardly, all it would take is one Zoom meeting with your publisher who says, quit bitching about Trump on the internet, man. It's all it does is alienate half your audience. Like we got to sell your books. I got to sell your book, and all you do is cry about politics and religion on the internet all day, and I'm not going to be able to sell your books, and we're going to have to cut your fucking, we're going to have to cut you loose and hire and publish people who we can sell. For too long, these people have had a mandate to whine, bitch, and complain about about right-wing politicians and whatever, Christians, you name it, anything on the right, with no consequences. No consequences to them personally, but the sales of all this stuff has just dramatically just dropped and dropped and dropped and dropped. Why don't people buy comics? Why don't people watch movies? Why don't people buy music? Well, a lot of that is piracy on the internet. A lot of it is people would rather watch YouTube and TikTok. But a lot of it is that these people are their own worst representatives on the internet, and they get a little bit of notoriety, and then they spend the rest of their, look at Stephen King, they spend the rest of their lives bitching and moaning and destroying their own fan base. I don't want fans. If you voted for Donald Trump, delete yourself from my life. I don't want a fan like you. Yeah, your publisher really wants to hear that. The guy trying to sell the guy who dumped a ton of money and risk into printing, 10,000 or 20,000 or 50,000 copies of this book, really want you to sit on the internet and alienate half your fan base every day while they're trying to sell your fucking books. I'm out of here, gang. Hope you had a good day. And I hope that you stay strange.